Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Gaming to the Max and part 1 of our Hearts of Iron 4 Kaiserreich, the German Empire replay. So, Kaiserreich has had an update. They were in 1.0.2 when we started our German Empire playthrough. Now they're on 1.0.3, and it was not save compatible, so we have to restart, which that's fine with me. We're going to play as Germany. We're going to try the conservative revolution again. So we'll be doing a lot of things kind of similar, but at the same time, we learned a lot in the last campaign that I'm hoping to put into this campaign and make this a lot better than what we were in the last series. There's a lot of things I'd like to do different. There's a lot of things I'm going to try to do different. So we shall see what comes about. I'm feeling a lot better. I was having some trouble with a sore throat and some congestion and sickness. I still have a little bit of a raspy voice, and reading a lot is gonna kind of be a little bit challenging. But I've got some water next to me, so if you guys hear me taking some sips of water, it's just where I'm trying to get my throat a little bit wet so it's not dry. But if you guys would like to read this, this is the country of Germany now. So, let you all read that. And I think this is a little bit more the end of the Weltkrieg. We'll go through this. You guys can pause if you'd like to read this. I think there's one, two. Well, there's quite a bit here, so you guys would like to continue to read, just give it a pause. The golden 20s. Hope that this gives you a little bit of insight of what's about to happen. So and the March Constitution. Alright, then that's going to be it. We'll give it a good pause there for you guys to read if you'd like. First off, let's start out with our research. We'll do the machine converter with our Mauser. Electronic mechanical engineering. We'll do basic machine tools, and we will do constructions 1. First of all, we're going to build, let's see, what's that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How many dockyards do I have? I have 12. That's fine. Then we'll do some civilian factories here in central Germany. Now, missing production equipment. We're going to get rid of that because first off, I'm going to go into my planes, find that transport unit, and we're going to get rid of that. Don't care about that, and we will look for these naval bombers. We'll get rid of those. Don't necessarily have the industry as of right now to do that. Let's use Mauser instead of Walther. We'll use Rheinmetall for our artillery because that's all we got. Durchwaffen und Munitionfabrikant for our support equipment. Opel for our automotive. I'm going to get rid of one of those for the light chassis. We will, once we get enough army experience, completely get rid of all of our basic light chassis, but we need them now. We will, let's use, you help with medium tanks? Yeah. So, we can do Benz and C. For our medium tanks, though, we will use Daimler. Now, these are all of our boats. Let's get all of you all producing. We'll move you all up. The JU-87s. And then our HE-111s. Alright, we'll come back up here. We'll do our BF-109s, we'll use Focke-Wulf. Our JU-87s will use Junkers. And our HE-1100s will use Dornier. Which, if we use Simon's Schukerts, it gives small planes and medium planes a boost, which might be better. I'm curious though if they have to be built by this company. Yeah, see they get ground attack and air attack better. With these guys, they get surface detection and ground attack. Well, we'll still use them. I think that's a little bit better. And then for our boats, we'll use Wilhelmshavenwerk for our battle line ship designers. Go all the way down till we get to the light cruisers, or light ships, which are destroyers, and we'll do Bloom and Voss. So our escort ships. These will take a while. Then we'll focus solely on a lot of convoys. That was kind of a bottleneck we had in the last series. Let's get some more production on tanks. Let's most definitely get anti-air, and anti-tank being produced early. I know we don't have any factories on them. We'll actually just move a couple off of our infantry equipment, move them over. And then let's trade. We can just do the United States for our tungsten and our chromium. We can go with Sweden. That's good for right now. National focus, we only have one to choose from, and that's going to be Masters of the World. So we'll start out with that. And then we have our relatively large military, 73 divisions, which is quite nice. Let's get the 59. We'll actually move you all off there. We're going to split you all in two. Alright, we're going to put two generals, Erwin von Wisleben, and we will choose Wilhelm von Lib. And the reason why I'm choosing these guys is they have general max army size +6, so they can have 30. And we'll put you under our best defense general, which is Kurt von Hammerstein Accord. And you all will be on the communist French border. Now, with these 14 others, there are motorized cavalry and panzers. We'll be taking our first guard infantry division with the panzers, and our two mountaineers. We'll be putting them in an army. And then we will probably be splitting these up into 4 as well. So the 2nd Panzer, these two, and them. And there'll be another 4. And these will be going overseas as our support, or as our volunteer force. And we will put your Panzer officer. I kind of like Gunther von Kluge. He's an armored officer. You have more attack. But yeah, we'll choose Gunther von Kluge for our first expeditionary, or not expeditionary force, but our first volunteer forces. Starting out, we do start with negative political power, but that will be alright. We're going to start out with Masters of the World. If you guys would like to see our national spirits, we start with March leads to April, which gives us negative 75 political power gain, and weekly stability negative 0.5%. Victors of the Weltkrieg, which gives us negative 75% Army, Naval, and Air experience gain, plus daily command power gain multiplier negative 50. We've got Deutsches Weltkrieg, which gives us a plus 10% surrender limit, a negative 20% war support, and trade deal opinion factors plus 100%. We've got the Christmas Spike, which gives us consumer good factories negative 30% and construction speed plus 25%. And we have Fruits of the Open Door, which is from the legation cities. We get 5% resource gain efficiency, construction speed, and factory output. And then we are a part of Middle Europa. We won't get to do anything with that until 1937. So first, 21 days, we'll get Weltpolitik, which gives Guarantee Cross, negative 25%, and Max Volunteer Force Division, plus 2%. And let's crank her up to 4 speed, and let's get going. So it's kind of sad that the playthrough we were playing, we didn't get to finish, but there wasn't much I could do with that, especially with the game updating. I'm always happy to see updates. They did quite a bit of updates over here in Italy. The Italian Republic got a couple of updates. I think they all were with some updates. I know that Bilbao is no longer in charge of the nationalist Italian Republic. He actually is a part of the Socialist Republic now. So, assassination of Alexander Kerensky, chairman of the Senate. Alexander Kerensky has just been shot dead on the steps of the Senate building in the Kremlin. Not the first politician Sennikov has killed. Increased world tension by 2. Voting rights in the Legation Council. The legation cities were formed in 1928 as a result of the Americans' intervention in the Japanese-Chinese conflict that was going to spill over into open war between ourselves and the Japanese. When a passenger train was attacked by Chinese warlords, America saw the opportunity to mediate to not only in order to create a more permanent solution to the instability in the East, but also enshrine the open door policy in China, which allows all powers equal access to Chinese markets. Consisting of all official concessions in China as well as a 30-mile neutral zone, the legation city is officially known as the International Mandate for the Chinese Concessions. Also hosts a forum, the Legation Council, for the various powers with interest in China to resolve disputes and work together. As the foremost European power in the East, we naturally are able to vote on the Council and further our Eastern agenda. A perfect agreement gained 25 political power. This right here is the legation cities. Shanghai, Ningbo, Guangzhou, Chateau, Hong Kong, and I think that is it. The rest are ours. We own Weihai and Qingdao. Aftermath of the assassinations, the shot fired on the streets of Moscow yesterday marked the first unexpected event of this year, and it has struck Germany directly. As in their aftermath, the German ambassador in Moscow, Friedrich Werner von der Schulenburg, received an invitation from the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs to negotiate on the futures of Russia-German relations. The upcoming expiry of the Vilnius Agreement and the fate of the large German investments in Russia were the main topics of discussions. However, the contents of the Russian notes were leaked to the press by a clerk in the embassy and instantly embellished with secondhand rumors and fear-mongering about planned nationalizations of German investments or possibly even a road to war. The stocks of the company with large investments in Russia, especially heavy industry giants such as Krupp AG and Remmental, began to tremble in the aftermath, and what was so far been a steadily stock market spike has turned to a volatile market. Interventions by the key stock market brokers and banks, such as the Association of Berlin Banks and Bankers, prevented a stock market crash, but the faith of the investors have taken a sharp dive. In the midst of the flurry of economic news, few were shaking the questions of what could await Eastern Europe in the future. For 2 decades, Russia has been seen as an unstable Eastern buffer whose great power ambitions have been permanently shattered, but perhaps it was not as permanent as people thought. How could Russia be a threat to Germany again? Game base stability negative 10%. And we've got Boris Sonovkov in charge for right now. So, all right. There's going to be a lot of reading at the beginning of this, and well, for a majority of this, there's going to be quite a bit of reading. So, Reichstagwahl in 1936, one after another, moderate chancellors perpetuating the consensus of the March Constitution have ruled the Kaiserreich since 1920. Solf, Erzberg, Pozdolsky, Brockdorf, Ronsow, Marx, Bernstorff. That does not mean that there has been no opposition to the consensus, however, permanent opposition. 2 parties which, in spite of their popularity, have been left out, eyed with suspicion by the Kaiser and the political establishment. They await the end of the consensus with glee. The elections of 1936 may prove to be what they had waited for so long, a path to power. On the left, the Social Democrats had been one of the main champions of the March reforms, and it took it as a victory, yet grew increasingly estranged from their allies on the center during the 1920s. The dreams of an SPD chancellor never came about due to the Kaiser's reluctance, and the end of Brockendorf's grand coalition saw the SPD finally move to the opposition. A plurality in the Reichstag is the priority, but so is dealing with the worrying growth of the right. If the conservatives take advantage of the fall of the March coalition, then the democratic rights which the German people have finally gained in 1920 may fall under threat. The German Fatherland Party is a party of the new breed of the right, not the agrarian aristocracy of the DKP or the petty one-note politics of the pre-war anti-Semitism party, but a party of the radical middle class, the yellow workers, and the nationalist masses. Officially established in 1919, but born in 1917, as an all-national organization campaigning for wartime unity, due to its connection with the Tripit Circle, the OHL dictatorship, and the secret plots to overthrow the Kaiser during World War II or the war. It eyed the suspicion by everyone, be it Wilhelm II or the other parties, but times have changed, and the disappointment with the March coalition can easily benefit the DVLP. Not powerful enough to achieve a majority itself, it will need to build a grand coalition of the right, which will mean compromising some of their national revolutionary principles, but a step forward is better than no step at all. So we have a choice. We can either play as the SPD or the DVLP, and we will play the 1936 elections as the DVLP. It appears unlikely that we'll be able to gather a majority outright, but remember the election is just the beginning. Deutschland wächst auf, dein Schicksalsstund ist gekommen, votes DVLP. Probably butchered that. Not gonna lie, I don't speak German. I've kind of been able to relatively guess how to say some of this stuff. So, Reichstag elections 1936. We're able to choose 3 campaign decisions. So, let's go with the DKP DVLP manual runoff support. That gives us 5 seats. 3 for the DKP, 2 for the DVLP. We'll go with endorsed control of Hess, which gives us 5 seats for the DVLP. And let's do this one. Gains 2 seats for the Zentrum, 1 seat for the agricultural or agrarian candidates, and 2 for the DVLP. Endorse right Zentrum candidates in Westphalia. That's all we can choose. You have to have 223 seats, but it most definitely shows that we will not have that. So, wow. Okay, so Boris Savinkov, the man that assassinated Kerensky, is now himself assassinated. Attempted to flee the capital after massive protests broke out. His car was blown up while he was in it, and he succumbed to his injuries shortly after. How ironic. So let's see who looks like they're about to take power. So far, we finished Master of the Worlds. There's the Totalist Charter. This talks about the syndicalists and the belief of the totalism and the syndicalists. So the people must reject this madness. We've done that. So let's see. We can do Osterwald. We can expand the colonial budget, which hurts us for 180 days. I'm going to hold off on doing that. Or we can use the Prizvitz plan. Buying time with spies would be nice. It gives us a operative slot. So I think we'll go with that, buying time with spies. I have some ideas with our intelligence agencies. Edward VIII is crowned as King of Great Britain. Interesting. George V has passed away. George V was Kaiser Wilhelm's cousin. That's something kind of weird if you did not know about that. The King of Britain, the Tsar of Russia, and the Kaiser of Germany, they all 3 were cousins during World War I. So Dmitry Romanov has appointed interim president. Today, interim president Viktor Chernov's bid to retain his position has been narrowly defeated by the Grand Duke Dmitry Romanov. Dmitry has found its appeal among the right-wing cadets, Russian nationalists, Octoberists, and other conservatives who have supported his rise to power. Another Romanov? Really? So you got Dmitry there. He is the first cousin of the last Russian Emperor, Nicholas II. All right, so 10 years after the intervention, for the past months, the Berlin Stock Exchange has been in a volatile plateau, and some voices, such as Walter von Rathenow, have already predicted an impending stock market crash, though others are skeptical of such doomsaying. Still, since senses of unease permeates the markets and trading volumes are relatively subdued, until now when a 1-2 punch dealt a second severe blow to the stability of the stock market. After forced audits by the Reichswirtschaftsamt, Imperial Economic Office, numerous instances of fraud have been revealed among companies operated in German East Asia. The deplorable finances of their eastern branches were being hidden by fudging numbers, and the same fudging was used to avoid taxes. Just in time when a retired officer from German East Asia, Franz Brungenhaus, published a piece in the Berliner Tagblatt titled 10 Years After the Intervention, referring to the German intervention in China with an expeditionary force to topple the Kuomintang's northern expedition. It's an alarmist piece describing the failure of the German foreign policy in East Asia and stating that the instability in the League of the Eight Provinces is the fuse which will set off an expedition or an explosion of socialist and anti-concessionist revolts in China, threatening all German investments in China. For a market whose stability is already wobbling, this was not good news to wake up to. Investors began pulling out of affected companies in droves, causing a dip in overall stock price. A flurry of trading on German government bonds occurred as exposed investors needing liquidity sold them to others, less exposed institutions seeking stabler investments. If this continues, it could lead to the greatest stock market crash in German history. We got scandal there on the front page of the newspaper. But what could be done to stop it? Gain base stability negative 5%. We've got an operative. You've got counterintelligence. You're commando, but you're a master soldier. You're a master saboteur. I like Herman Giske's pretty well, but we'll go with the master soldier. And we will continue on. All right. Impasse in the Reichstag. In the Frankfurter Zeitung, Walter von Rathenow has repeated his call for action, demanding the government to impose a week-long temporary bank holiday from Monday, February 3rd onwards, which would take the heat off an overheated market and allow tensions in the air to cease. News of this proposal reached the president of the Reichsbank, Halmer Schacht, who forwarded the proposal to Chancellor Herbert von Dirksen. The two politicians then spent the weekend trying to organize an emergency response to an impending economic collapse. A meeting of the leaders of the Reichstag parties on Saturday was fruitless, however. Though the parliamentary leaders all agreed that the situation is very tense, they disagreed on the specifics, and ultimately the two largest opposition leaders, Hermann Müller of the SPD and Ulrich von Hassel of the DVLP, were anticipating an economic downfall, as the blame for it would fall not upon them but upon the LVP, Zentrum, and the Chancellor. In the end, stating that getting a few plutocrats bankrupt might just leave Germany better off, Müller accused the March coalition of creating the conditions for the crash in the first place and ended the meeting. Desperate and disheartened by the political impasse, Schatz chose to act independently. On Sunday, the Reichsbank published a note declaring that access to credit within the Reichsbank will henceforth be based on their primary coverage ratio, and temporarily suspended the Reichsmark's convertibility to gold. His goal was to bring long-term stability to the market by minimizing damage done to the banks in a stock market crash. But on the last day before Monday, it has sown terror in the market and neutered the role of the Reichsbank as a lender of last resort. Let's hope Monday brings good news. Gain base stability negative 5% and political power negative 75. Afghanistan declared war on the Dominion of India. And on the 3rd of February 1936, the Berlin Stock Exchange stopped sinking. It plunged, fueled by the instability of the market. Panic selling erupted as soon as the stock market opened on Monday morning. It took well into the night for the teleprinters to stop sputtering out the results of what became known as Black Monday. When the results had been analyzed, it was clear that the situation had only gotten worse. The shock of this unprecedented economic catastrophe will no doubt be felt over the entire world. The German Golden Age has ended for now, at least. Mein Gott, we get world tension is increased by 4, gain base stability negative 40%, and we replace the Christmas spike with Black Monday, which changes our consumer good factor plus 80%, our construction speed negative 40%, our production efficiency and factory output negative 15%, and the SPD and the DVLP will gain 10 additional seats in the Reichstag election, respectively. So, mein Gott, my God. And then, of course, the 5th Anglo-Afghani War. Who cares about Afghanistan? 1 point to world tension. Sorry if I sound like I'm coughing, or not really coughing, but I have a Halls in right now, so I've got some medicine right now. So, Sorelians elected in France. The Commune of France, the world's leading socialist nation. It is a federation of city communes directed by the Committee de Suite Public. The chief executive, since its inception, the Second Commune has not been uniform in policy. Numerous factions with their own distinct direction of France have been vied for power. With revenge against Germany and the world revolution approaching, the election in 1936 was set to be very important. So now you have Puri Monete, the CSR. We got the death of Wilhelm Solf. Amid the chaos of the recent market crash, the death of former Reich Chancellor Wilhelm Solf has been barely taken notice by most of the German people. Solf has succumbed to a bad case of pneumonia this morning at age 73 and leaves behind an enormous political legacy. Barely anyone else has such a lasting influence on domestic, foreign, and especially colonial affairs in the time period between 1911 and 1923. It was Solf who continued what Bernhard Dunderberg started in the newly created colonial office in the mid 1900s and transformed the German colonial empire into the most modern on earth. It was Solf who fought against annexationist hardliners during the war and advocated for a fair but honorable peace treaty of compromise. It was Solf who led the first paramilitary, democratically elected government after the end of the war, and it was Solf who tried to put an end to the decades of Anglo-German hostilities with his famous Rosen mission in 1921, albeit sadly without success, or albeit sadly without success. Even after his resignation in 1922, Solf remained active in the democratic liberal circles and shaped a whole generation of reformist-minded colonial officials, many of whom still have far-reaching influence in the colonies, like Herman Sabbath in East Asia. Despite all his fairly progressive views made him powerful enemies in the conservative-minded imperial political elite, especially the reactionary colonial society, but on the sad day, even his old adversaries prefer to remain silent and pay tribute to one of the most influential statements in recent German history. An honorable but flawed man and it's who served a flawed system. Gained base stability plus 2%. Alright, so now we've got the Federalist bloc. Finding themselves under increasingly greater competition, Zentrium branches in competitive regions such as Silesia, Westphalia, and Hanover have been struggling to maintain their ground against popular social democrat and right-wing candidates. To alleviate with disparity, Zentrium candidates and party branches have begun independently making deals with local parties to unite behind a common candidate in competitive districts and thus increase their chances of victory. In Hanover, the Zentrium party renewed its historical cooperation with the German Hanoverian party, commonly known as the Yulf Party or the Welfen, a regional political party created after the annexation of the Kingdom of Hanover. It generally sat with the Zentrium in the pre-war Reichstag. However, the post-war years have seen its experience a sharp decline. The Welfen conservative federalism has struggled in the post-war environment, and losing their last lease on life might just prove to be the end of the party. On the other side of the empire, the Zentrium members in the Posen have begun expanding their collaboration with the Polish autonomists, particularly those closer to the CHZJN in Poland proper. Unlike in Hanover, the Polish ethnic constituency has not lost its potency, although it still needs to compete with the anti-Polish electoral pacts and mixed constituencies. For them, much like for the Welfen, Zentrium is a natural ally, as they are both ideologically conservative and concerned with maintaining the federal model of the state with hopes of decentralizing it further. Against centralist encroachment from the left and the right alike, not everyone in Zentrium subscribes to the idea of tagging along with a flock of weak minor parties, however. If we support these pacts, Zentrium defends federalism, which gives them 2 additional seats. The Welfens gain 1 seat and the minority bloc gains 1, or Zentrium gains 3, and the Welfen campaign will break down and they will lose 5 seats. We'll just support them and keep the Welfen pack up. A lot of reading, and I apologize. If you guys don't want me to read, you can always put in the comments, hey, you don't have to read. The collapse of the Donata Bank. The Darmstadt und National Bank of the Donata is the first major casualty of Black Monday financial crash. The second largest bank in the German Empire, it went deep into the high-risk loans prior to 1936, offering quick and easy loans to would-be stockbrokers and growing companies, and now reaps the consequences. One of the companies which has been severely indebted to the Donata Bank was the Norddeutsches Volksmeere and Kammgarnspinnerie, or the Nordwohl, a wool and worsening processing plant in Delmenhorst. Much like hundreds of other companies, it's announced its bankruptcy in the aftermath of the crash. However, it barely stayed afloat for the past several years and finally received the blow which made the plant insolvent. News of the Nordwohl's bankruptcy caused a bank run on Donata Bank, as many other investors were fearful of the bank's future and rapidly pulled their savings while they can still get their money's worth. As the Donata Bank had failed to reach its primary coverage ratio for the past several years due to its speculative loaning practices, it could not be saved by the Reichsbank in this moment of crisis, and so was forced to declare bankruptcy as well. The collapse of this old, respected bank has sent terrifying tremors across the German banking system. Across the empire, investors and citizens alike are withdrawing their savings and retreating from the market. Banks are collapsing one after another, caught completely unprepared by the enormous crash, and the financial system of the empire has been left completely crippled. This is a nightmare. Game-based stability, negative 8%. Political power, -50. And without any response from Berlin, the economic crisis is getting worse. So now we're at a -115 political power and 33% stability. The Austrian Empire withdraws from Italy. You are doing the status of the Admiralty. Alright, this is Neue Wirtschaft. Having earned the attention of the public with his accurate prediction of the Black Monday stock market crash, Walter von Rathenow has not stopped there. Instead, in the aftermath of the Black Week and on the onset of the greatest economic crisis Germany has faced since the Weltkrieg, he has published an 11-page document for a full-scale reform of the economic system. This document has been proliferated across parties and major newspapers. Those well read could tell that this document was a summary and somewhat moderate implementation of Rathenow's ideas in his 1919 work, New Wirtschaft, or the New Economy, and mirrors the economic reforms he pursued during the Solf and Erzberg governments as Secretary of the Economy. A firm believer in his economic program, Rathenow believes that Black Monday is the perfect opportunity to pursue a full economic reform. The powers of the government and economic management must be greatly expanded, and wartime offices for the control of economic affairs and distribution of resources must be restored as permanent institutions. Rathenow sees economic planning as compatible with the free market. State intervention will be able to harmonize the market, prevent waste of resources, and most importantly, combat the alienation of millions of factory workers employed in dull, mundane work across Germany. While he does not propose it in his economic program yet, Rathenow's dream of a utopian, classless society which will free workers from soulless labor, the mundanity of work cannot be resolved with the socialist promise of wage raises or shorter hours. A complete restructuring is necessary through a panacea Arbeitsschluss, equalization of work. Menial and mental workers would switch offices for factories and factories for offices a few hours every day and would be able to find their calling somewhere in the vast society of choice. Classes would dissolve, all work would be open according to talent, and mundanity of work would cease. But for now, economic planning will suffice. An interesting program. The SPD and the LVP earned 2 additional seats and 3 additional seats, respectively, and we gained 25 political power. Sorry, I had to take me a drink there. Reading paragraph after paragraph. Alright, we have the resignation of Reichschancellor Dirksen. It has been anticipated ever since late last year, but it's finally arrived thanks to Black Monday market crash. Not only after that day in February, Reichschancellor Herbert von Dirksen announced his resignation, offering little comments to the press or to the members of the Reichstag. Though a competent diplomat, Dirksen's composure and the character of a vain, pompous aristocrat left him isolated in high politics, and he never managed to shake off the veneer of being a royal appointment, less legitimate than partisan chancellors in the post-March German Empire. His vice-chancellor, Heinrich Brüning, refused to seek the Kaiser's appointment as the next Reichschancellor after the Black Monday crisis. The office became a poison chalice. Seeing little initiative from the parties in the Reichstag, Wilhelm II appointed the current Minister-President of Prussia, Siegfried von Roederer, as the new Reichschancellor. An elder civil servant with years of experience in the federal and Prussian governments alike, he currently heads a non-partisan government of the center and right in Prussia, staffed with right-wing politicians and non-partisan professionals. Though his government is not planning to survive the April election, it has a lot on his plate regardless. Roederer's preference is to assemble a non-partisan emergency cabinet, staffed mainly by civil servants he relied upon in Prussia, and promulgate emergency economic controls. This Prussian lockdown on the federal government is bound to go poorly in states, however. An alternative approach would be to keep Brüning as a vice-chancellor and work with the Reichstag. Brockendorf could forge a grand coalition after the dramatic 1924 elections, so perhaps Roederer can replicate the same feat. We appoint advisor Siegfried von Roederer with the effects -5% political power gain, plus 5% stability, and plus 10% training time. The Social Conservative Party will be known as Cabinet Roederer. We gain 50 political power, and March leads to April is modified to weekly stability plus 0.3, or we gain the same advisor, but the Socialist Liberals will join the coalition as well. Perhaps he can restore it. Let's see. March leads to April. That would put us at negative 0.2 weekly stability. I done this choice last time. So we'll just do that choice again. The mass layoffs, this back one right here, is the illusion of Quinn hegemony shatters. The facade of Chinese unity, having been held together for nearly a decade, has begun to crumble. World tension is increased by 2, the end of an era. Mass layoffs. By late February, the Reichsbank and the state institutions finally began making the first actions towards stabilizing the free fall markets. A bank holiday has been established, and emergency bailouts for keystone banks that survived the initial crash have been sent out, though all of the state's actions so far have been kept at a minimum, as the Reichstag remains deadlocked and the election is approaching soon. By now, however, the damage has already been done. With the financial sector crippled and the international economic system trembling, demand for German exports have collapsed, and companies across Germany are forced to either declare insolvency or drastically cut costs. For almost all industries, this means relieving workers, many of them, and the numbers of unemployment who have been cast out to the streets is now in the millions. The Barvers reforms in 1925 established a system of unemployment insurance for German workers, and so a meager pension allows the unemployed to make ends meet somewhat. But this has taxed the already struggling finances of the empire greatly, and in numerous cases the impact of the crash has been a lot more tragic. Stock market brokers who had lost everything in the past few weeks, struggling artisans who had refined their humble careers for decades and saw their life's ambition crash these days, all having taken a liking to ending their lives, and state police forces have been forced to patrol bridges more and more often. The government must intervene and do something. Lose another 8% stability. Lose 2 military factories and 2 civilian factories, and without a response from Berlin, the economic crisis is getting worse. The government must intervene and do something. I wholeheartedly agree. The DKAEB is on the verge of bankruptcy. Founded in the early 20th century, the Deutsche Kaiserreich Abyssinian Eisenbahn, the DKAEB, is a holding company that oversees the railway between the Addis Ababa in Ethiopia and Djibouti. After a series of German-backed expansions, the line is used to transport ore from the Congo Basin to Djibouti. The current economic downturn means that ore is not being brought at the same rate as before, resulting in fewer transports for the DKAEB. As a result, the DKAEB is struggling financially, and some board members have approached the government in Dar es Salaam to sell their shares to the German government. Something has to be done to prevent Ethiopia from slipping from our grasp. We'll lose the political power, lose 25 political power. We get Savannah Colonial Office comes to decisions. We can sell the government shares to Ethiopia, or is it Middle Africa responsible for Middle Africans' affairs? We will prop up the company. I think it's worth losing a little bit of political power there to maybe have an ally here in Africa, or another ally, I should say. Outbreaks of anti-Semitic violence. The beginning of the economic crisis sparked by Black Monday market crash has given fuel to anti-Semitic agitation and even a handful of outbreaks of violence across Germany. And local legislators, right-wing deputies, generally those belonging to the DVLP, have proposed taxation on Jewish businesses or boycotts of Jewish goods, while Jewish citizens in the cities have had to cope with suspicion and constant libel from right-wing newspapers. The Jewish population of Germany has historically been more integrated than their peers in the former Russian Empire, and have gifted Germany with numerous scientists, politicians, cultural figures, and war veterans. However, suspicion and mistreatment of them remains to this day. The Black Monday market crash was difficult to comprehend for many German citizens, and decades of propaganda espousing an internationalist Jewish financier conspiracy did not make it difficult for most downtrodden to connect these two events, thus claiming that the German Jews were somehow responsible for the market crash. Aggressive DVLP agitation during the 1936 electoral campaign, which often played upon these anti-Semitic fears, helped escalate them even further. The Jewish population is not completely helpless, however. Organizations such as the Central Varian have constantly fought anti-Semitism in Germany through legal means, and they have already begun documenting and reporting instances of this outbreak while providing support for Jewish citizens who have been defamed or were injured by anti-Semitic attacks. This needs to be stopped. gained base stability -3%, and change in popularity of national populism +2%. Marshal Wu Peifu backs Nanjing, following the death of Marshal Song Shufang earlier this year and the subsequent collapse of the Qing authority over much of China. Few expected Imperial Minister of the Army Hu Peifu, the real power behind the throne of Beijing, to take overt military action. Yet this morning, he and the Assembly President Cao Kun announced their formal support of the provincial government in Nanjing, the remnants of the old League of 8 provinces. German diplomats and strategists are no doubt breathing a sigh of relief as Wu Peifu's military support of the new League Marshal Kui Zhejiang may be a deciding factor in the war against both the resurgent KMT and Anhui province aligned with Fengtang and by the extension Japan. German order in Asia may still hold. With that, come over here to Nanjing. We will send our volunteers. We can send 4. We will send Gunther von Kluge with our 1 motorized, 1 tank, and 2 mountain. And we will send 2 air volunteers. It'll take 14 days to get over there. But we can go to our Air Force. Delete you. And we can delete... Oh, we won't delete you. We'll take you to the 1st and the 2nd. And they do not have an airport, but Indochina does. So we'll send our planes down to Indochina, and then when we're able to, we'll move them up. How many planes are we actually down? 96. Would like to see. That'll be alright. We'll be alright. We've got buying times with spies down, and we got passive defense, and we can do the 2nd expedition to China, which gives us German military mission, or the Nanjing Click adds a German military mission, which grants army experience gain plus 0.02 daily, division training time -15%, and max planning plus 5%. So we'll do that. Deadlock in the Bundesrat. The formation of Roderic's nonpartisan government was taken as an affront by German numerous federal states, especially the South. Bavaria, Württemberg, and Baden viewed the formation of a government dominated by Prussian officials with extreme suspicion. Their governments, mainly led by the Zentrum and the LVP, also did not appreciate their respective parties being shut out of the government by the Reichschancellor. The result was that in Bundesrat, Germany's upper house, composed of representatives of its member states, a hostile majority has formed against the Reichschancellor, composed of the southern states and numerous minor states who have joined in protest against the Reichschancellor. Though Zentrum and the LVP led the attack against the Reichschancellor, it was the SPD who benefited in the election polls the most. Their campaign and the Reichstag delegation took advantage of the political drama to protest the bureaucratization of the government and the growing trends of lacking Reichschancellor accountability to the Reichstag, which spells out the necessity for further democratic reform in the empire. At this point, will we ever find a government come April? Lose 50 political power, lose 10% stability. SPD gains 5 additional seats. Zentrum gains 3, and the Zeus earn 2. Not really what we wanted to see there. The Shangqing Tiango is declared. The Governor Zhang Zhoushang, known throughout China as the Dogmeat General, is dead. So now you have Zhang Tengran in charge of the Xinhua. Try to rush troops over here. There's an airbase there now. I'd say these planes will take quite a while to get over there. Work creation plans in the ADGB. The economic crisis has sparked discussions within various ideological circles and associations. The traditional consensus among German economists has failed, or at least it's no longer trusted by the average worker and politician. Witnessing millions being thrown to the streets and dozens of banks collapsing overnight, parties, associations, and trade unions look towards the government for potential salvation. The state intervention may help drive up demand and invigorate the economy during the financial cycle, has been contemplated during the interwar periods, and these ideas have only gained more traction since Black Monday. The Journal of the General German Trade Union Federation, or the ADGB Diarit, has opened discussions on what they have named active economic policy after publications of a political economic program by the trade unionist Fritz Tarnow and Fritz Bod. This plan, titled the Tarnow-Bad Plan, after its creators, posits the creation of massive public works which would employ up to 1 million people across the empire, as well as tightened banking controls, which would allow an extensive inflationary policy. According to Tarnow and Biden, work creation and fiscal inflation will provide relief for the poor and drive up demand, solving the downfall. Though the ADGB is closely allied with the SPD, the party has actually distanced itself from the Tarnow Bad Plan. Otto Wels and Rudolf Hilferding have both criticized the ADGB for its direct intervention in politics, which should be delegated solely to the party, and for Tarnow and bad intentions to play doctor at the bedside of capitalism. Undeterred, the trade unionists have been making waves across the press and on the left, and earned the surprising endorsement of the Prussian Minister of War, Kurt von Schleicher, who described work creation as the only way out of today's plight. Interesting. SPD gains an additional seat and gained base stability -2%. So now we are negative stability. Sorry, I had to get me a little drink there. We're going to have to figure a way to save the Nanjing click when we come in here. So probably push out of Nanjing here. Fight through this couple tiles. It should be over there in what? March 9th, so 6 more days. Our 1 planes have arrived. Let me actually come back over here to Germany. You're flying over there. We'll take you all. We'll disband you, and hopefully, you know what, we'll disband you as well. We'll just merge you all. Alright. We'll merge you two. Alright. Maybe that gives my planes here. Are we still that low on planes? No. Okay. Yep. That pumped them up. Oh, we're only allowed 1? Thought it said 2. Well, I would say the close air support would much more benefit us. Here, close air support and logistic strikes. I'm not going to worry about the Navy strikes. We'll get done with this in 11 days. The German agrarian crisis. The German agricultural sector, struggling for years at this point, has suffered greatly from the economic crisis sparked by Black Monday market crash. It is the latest step in the persistent decline of German agriculture ever since the late 19th century, the culmination of many years of inefficient and outdated methods, unfortunate global market developments, and stalling, poorly future-oriented agrarian policies. Compared to its Western competitors such as Britain or the United States, Germany agriculture has consistently lagged behind its efficiency. 25% of all arable land across the empire is held by 0.2% of the landowners, most of which are operated in East Elbia. But since the late 20s, small and mid-sized farmers all across the nation have started to feel the effects of this looming efficiency crisis as well. Steady price erosion for the agricultural goods due to cheaper competition from abroad and shriveling purchasing power have slowly led many farmers into the never-ending downward spiral of growing indebtedness. What could initially be battled via the reintroduction of protective tariffs and import quotas, undoubtedly a controversial policy instrument within Middle Europa, has at the end of the day only postponed the inevitable. With the collapse of the German banking sector, the looming crisis will soon aggravate as many estates and enterprises which have relied on loans to stay afloat are bound to default on these in the near future, and the collapsing demand for agricultural goods could be the nail in the coffin. This substantial crisis has already begun to fuel the DKP electoral campaign and placed the question of a dramatically different agricultural policy on the agenda. What many have seemed to have forgotten, though, is the fact that the Conservatives are partly responsible themselves for this dilemma, via the candidate in the State Secretariat of Agriculture, Martin Scheil, and his controversial agricultural policies during the last decade. For now, his political fate is on a knife's edge. The great Juncker estates are a thing of the past. Gain base stability, -6%. Gain base war support, -10%. Remove 2 civilian factories, and then without a response from Berlin, the economic crisis is getting worse. The restoration of democracy in Australasia under the social conservative Wilhelm Riddle Birdwood. Our 4 units have arrived over in Nanjing. Push them out of blue there. Arthur Horner is elected chairman of the TUC. 1936 Trade Union Congress in the Union of Britain has made out to be decisive. Chairman Tom Mann declared his resignation, calling the 3 major factions, the Union, Maximus, and in the Union, Maximus, Autonomous, and Federalists, to butt heads over the position. As the dust settled, Arthur Horner, the current Welch secretary, has been chosen as Mann's successors. Interesting. The death of Pius the 11th. All Christendom mourns the death of His Holiness Pope Pius the 11th. City council elections in Berlin. The terms of the incumbent mayor of Berlin, Heinrich Somm, is set to expire, and a new election is thus slated to be held by the Berlin City Council. A technocratic independent, Somm served as the mayor of several other cities in the past before moving to Berlin, and is generally supported by the local liberal and conservative deputies. The political upheaval after Black Monday gives an opportunity for the Berlin Social Democrats to win elections to the City Council and appoint one of their own. Otto Ostwitz, current mayor of the Prenzlauer Berg borough of Berlin. Ostrowitzki is seen as a member of the left-wing faction of the SPD, and a victory for him would signal a significant change in Berlin politics. It would also be a bellwether of the nation's turn to the left and empower social democratic activities in other cities. Because of this, the LVP and DKP have joined forces in Berlin, seeking to keep Sam in power and return victory for the right and center. Once the election comes to pass, the results is Heinrich Somm wins another election. The LVP, the DKP win 2 additional seats, and the minor liberals earn a seat.
Bereit.
Ausrücken. We should move both of you down.
Angetreten.
You over here. These are mountain tiles, so our mountaineers will go fight there.
Bereit. Achtung.
And I'd say my bombers are doing quite well. Yeah. Pope Pius the 12th is elected as the new pope. Good luck, Your Holiness. That will be not what I wanted to look at. This gentleman right here, the paternal autocrat pope. Alright, the Black, White, and Red coalition is formed. Reorganization is taking place among the German parties, as long suspected collaboration between the conservative agrarian DKP and the far-right DVLP have been officially announced by their chairman, Kuno von Westrop and Ulrich von Hassel. This agreement entails raising joint candidates in key constituencies and a joint candidate for the chancellor in the next Reichstag. Though no candidates have been named yet, several have been considered by the press, including Karl Friedrich Gordinger, Thilo von Wilminski, Jovald von Kleist-Schimmens, and Walter von Keudel. In an official statement, both parties have described the alliance as a necessary measure to defend the German banner from ceaseless partisanship and societal decline, reflected in the alliance name, Schwarz, Zweibe, Rot, black, white, and red, the colors of the imperial flag. Full cooperation in the German right had been long anticipated by the SPD and the Democratic parties, although it failed to materialize in the 20s and 30s and early 30s due to the issues between leadership and overlapping voting blocks of the two parties. These hurdles appears to have been overcome, however, and a worrying right-wing coalition appears imminent. All for renewing the German spirit. DVLP gains 5 seats, and the DKP earns 3 seats.
Angetreten.
Talk faster than I can read. Q Zijuan accepts. He has accepted the terms of our military mission and will allow them to settle in Nanjing Click. This will bring much needed experience about the state of modern war to Germany and further our interest in China as well. Great. We send 1,000 rifles over to him. Finishes the second expedition in China. I think form additional East Asian regiments would be useful.
Bereit.
Let's see.
Ausrücken.
Might be able to break across the river there. The 9th International Congress. You guys would like to read about that. That's just talking about these socialist congresses.
Angetreten.
And they popped those units there. Oh, they did not. About to break that unit there. Hugenberg's group propaganda drive. The second chairman of the DVLP, below only Ulrich von Hassel, Alfred Hugenberg is one of the most important politicians in the party. Though his position is always symbolic, he commands a notable clique within the party and supports it through his considerable wealth and influence. A wealthy businessman and press baron, Hugenberg commands the so-called Hugenberg Group, a media empire commanding newspapers, publishers, and advertising agencies across the empire. Their papers sell hundreds of thousands of copies and hold considerable sway on public opinion. Of course, these articles are biased towards Hugenberg's preferred party and virtually despise both socialists and Jews. The 1936 electoral campaign has given the DVLP hope that they can position themselves as the leader of an all-right coalition in the Reichstag after the election, so the party's Central Committee has requested a mass propaganda drive from the second chairman, an aggressive promotion campaign for the Münchner Nachrichten and Der Tag, expansion of the Telegraphian Union news agency, and promotion of their articles to more and more newspapers, perhaps even a few movie deals, all could serve to get the image of the party of Trippets out there. Where should the resources of the campaign be concentrated, however, focusing on the Illustrierte Nachschabagebe? I couldn't do that one. I butchered that one, sorry. And cutting deals with urban newspapers will improve the DVLP's chances to win the middle class in the cities and cut down on social democratic growth. On the other hand, the Telegraphian Union has fostered good relations with independent rural news outlets, and investing more in the relations will aid the conservative cause in the Prussian countryside. We have a real chance of winning the urban districts. Gaining popularity of national populism +2. DVLP wins 5 seats. Far right candidates win 2, and minor liberals win 2. Or invest more in the rural areas. Same for the popularity of national populism. DVLP gains 5 seats. DKP earns 3, and the agrarian candidates earn 1. Let's go invest more in the rural outlets there. Whew, there's a lot of reading to start out with. The Zentrium has seen better days. Since the end of the Weltkrieg, the party has helped to form all 10 cabinets, whether to the left, right, or center. A strategy that has left it sorely unprepared for these times of polarization, as it now struggles to keep its voters away from the SPD and DVLP and upstart agrarian parties. Under these conditions, the party ruling cadre have begun to waver. Zentrium's current chairman, Theodor von Gurod, has served for the last 5 years with an eye on managing the party's various factions, but he has indicated that should Zentrium be pushed from power in the upcoming election, he will retire from his position. The news has put the entire party on maneuvers, and the first blow has come from the right flank. Heinrich Held, the Bavarian minister-president, has published an article in the Kölnische Volkszeitschrift on the party's future, in which he calls not only for a stronger commitment to regional and conservative issues, but for the party to reach out to the Protestant voters willing to defend both. In throwing the glove forth, Held revisits on the party's most contentious debates. Over time, many rightists and trade unionists have entertained the idea of taking Zentrium out of the tower, transforming it from a purely Catholic party to an all-Christian People's Party. In their eyes, such a party could unite middle class, working class, and rural interests, and provide a bulwark against the growing left. Held's remark on Christian unity have been echoed by leading trade unionist Adam Stegerwald, who many believe to be the frontrunner to succeed von Gurud. The Party Progressive watched these developments with concern. In the recent years, the left flank have championed the Catholic nature of the Zentrum out of the fear that the Protestants' vote would draw the party to the right, and indeed both Held and Steigerwald have suggested overturners to the DKP and even more rightward parties. The strongest rebuttal to Held's article has come from the leading Baden progressive Joseph Wirth, who argues that such adventures risk the party's position in the center and the trust of their Catholic electorate at a critical time. Whether Wirth's words will be heeded is an open question. This is not the time to expose ourselves to such risk, or Held's has the point the party must reach out from the tower to survive. Zentrum earns 5 seats. This eventual option will strengthen the left wing, or we can strengthen the right wing in the Zentrum. Let's try to strengthen the right wing. Held has a point.
Bereit.
The Kenyatta affair, a rather unique case, has been sluggishly passed through our legal system for years, or passed throughout our legal system. Now it's reached the highest court in the German state. Anti-colonial activist Jomo Kenyatta has brought a class action lawsuit against the former Middle African administration for its conduct during the 1925 pacification of Kenya. The case has become something of a political embarrassment, as some of the plaintiffs are British settlers. It cannot be easily dismissed. They claim that Schutzentruppe harmed them throughout policies of legal land seizures and even abductions and tortures, all done with the knowledge of the Middle African administration and with little legal basis. While the main parties involved are no longer part of our administration, commentators have noted that an award by the court could potentially set a precedent as to what the permissible extent of rule bending for our colonial administration is. We have nothing to fear. Gets a verdict. There's our new operative. We can do sabotage, detection chance, and operation risk. Your military background with counterintelligence. I like to have the Master Saboteur, but I don't usually do sabotage. We'll do the linguist gentleman there. And I want my linguist to... hold off for right now. The Fang Tang government has units in the Anjing clique, while the Nanjing clique has units from us, German East Asia, the legation cities, and the Qing government. Can I see how the war is going? I guess it'd be this one. They're pretty close to capitulation, 55%. The economic free fall ceases. Having been in free fall for the past months, the economic crisis has finally reached a modicum of stability, or at least it doesn't have much elsewhere to fall. The least stable companies and banks have gone under, and now the most durable ones compete in a shrunken, silenced environment. Investors' trust is at an all-time low, so new investments are non-existent, and production stagnates. And of course, millions of workers who had stable jobs last year are now in the streets, desperate for work, but companies, shaken by the financial collapse, are very hesitant to expand and employ more workers again. The initial surprise and shock in the German government has subsided, and our secretariats and ministries have begun developing solutions. The amount of work is enormous, and the state must somehow recover the economy of the empire back to its old heights, taking on challenges which may require widely different financial strategies each. The bureaucrats and officials thus eagerly await the results of the April election. Perhaps the next government will have the political capital needed for the necessary action. We shall restore the miracle of the Golden 20s. The Black Monday Crisis card game will be initiated. You must win at least 10 rounds of the game and improve economic health to -1 to put the end to the crisis. You gain 5 cards from the deck. So we'll come over here to our decisions. This right here is the Black Monday card game. How this works is you have to get at least 2,500 stagnation and 2,500 economic decline. You have to get more of that with the investments and stability down here. And so you have these different choices that you can make, but you have to pay attention because each choice adds to your national debt. Your national debt can't go over 200, and you actually don't want it to go, I think someone said, above 150, or you get worst buffs. So you want to pay attention to how much your debt is actually sitting at, so it kind of balances itself out. Well, where our current crisis right now is with the liquidity crisis. Our money issuing will give us a 50% more effective boost to it. So we get 1,500 stability and 1,500 investment. So now we need 1,000 investment and 1,000 stability to beat this. You can change the crisis with the Reichsbank's analysis. That doesn't do anything, but it does change that. So now your ongoing crisis is inflation. Capital control beats your inflation, so now you get 3,000 stability and 750 investment. And the last one we have is a relief card work creation, which is 1,500 stability and 750 investment plus 1% debt. And now we are above the stagnation and economic decline, so we do win this round. So that's how you play the Black Monday card game, and that will be pretty prevalent for a while. August the 4th supporters have a slim majority. I'm going to sell some of our holdings in Poland for the future of the Polish government. The monarchy gains 8 popularity and change in authoritarian democracy plus 2%. So sell a little bit of our holdings over here. Other than that, I'm going to end episode 1 with this. I hope you guys do enjoy our German Empire campaign. Sorry, I just kind of blanked there. Our redoing of our German Empire campaign. And I will see you all in the next episode. Bye.